Welcome back, everyone. Tonight, I'm bringing you 3 deeply unsettling stories about that moment we all dread, when you realize there's someone outside your home who shouldn't be there. That primal fear that hits when you hear footsteps where there should be silence, when you see a shadow where there should only be emptiness. These aren't fictional tales designed to give you a quick scare. These are real experiences from real people who lived through the terrifying reality of knowing someone was watching, waiting, circling their homes in the darkness. Before we begin, I want to know, have you ever been home alone and heard something outside that made your blood run cold? Have you ever looked out a window and seen something you couldn't explain? Drop a comment and share your experience. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in our fears is the only comfort we have. Alright, let's begin. And remember, these stories actually happened. Story 1, the pizza delivery. When I was 12 years old, my mom had just started trusting me enough to leave me home alone. I know 12 sounds young for that, but we lived in a peaceful, ordinarily safe little town. Quiet streets, spacious yards, friendly neighbors, a charming downtown with boutique shops and family-owned restaurants. It really wasn't the kind of place where you needed to look over your shoulder at night or worry about walking alone after dark. Just felt safe. That sense of security was part of the reason my parents felt comfortable leaving me alone at such a young age. I still live in the same house today, actually. I'm in my mid-20s now, back living with my parents while I save money for my own place. But that night, that specific night when I was 12, changed how I see this house, this neighborhood, everything. It was a weekend night. My parents were going out with friends for dinner and drinks. When my sister and I were really little, our grandparents would babysit us whenever our parents went out. But my sister wasn't home that night. I think she was at a sleepover or something, and since I was supposedly old enough to be trusted alone for a few hours, my parents decided to test the waters. My parents had us young, so they were still in their mid-30s at the time. They were more active socially than a lot of my friends' parents, always going out on weekends, taking trips, living their lives. I never resented them for it. I actually liked having the house to myself. They left me a $20 bill on the kitchen counter for dinner, enough for pizza with a decent tip. It was basically the ideal night for a 12-year-old kid. House to myself, video games all night, and pizza for dinner. What more could I want? I was obsessed with James Bond video games back then. I'd spent the entire previous summer playing through Nightfire on my PlayStation 2 at least 5 times. That night, I was starting my 6th playthrough, completely absorbed in the game. After I finished a few missions, I decided to order food. There was a pizza place called Gianni's just 3 blocks from our house. It had been our family's go-to pizzeria for years, decent prices, quick delivery, and they knew our order by heart. I called them up and ordered a large cheese pizza. At 12 years old, I could easily eat 3 or 4 slices by myself, and my mom had specifically told me to save the leftovers in the fridge for her and my dad when they got home. While I waited for the delivery, I switched out game discs and started playing Agent Under Fire, another James Bond game that I liked less than Nightfire, but it was still solid. When the doorbell rang about 30 minutes later, I paused the game and hurried downstairs with the $20 bill clutched in my hand. My mom had told me to tip $4, which seemed generous for a 3-block delivery, but whatever. I opened the door to find the delivery driver standing on our porch. He was maybe in his mid-30s, though he looked rough, like he'd been working doubles or hadn't slept well in a while. He had this really long, unkempt beard that looked greasy and unwashed, glasses with smudged lenses, and a black trucker hat pulled low over his forehead. I handed him the $20 and asked for $16 back. The pizza was $12, so that left the $4 tip. As he counted out my change, he looked up at me, then looked past me into the house. His eyes scanned the interior, the empty living room behind me, the dark hallway leading to the kitchen, the stairs going up to the 2nd floor. Then he asked, in this casual but deliberate tone, "You alone here?" Everything my parents had taught me about stranger danger immediately kicked in. That was not a normal question. That was not something an adult should be asking a kid. "My parents are on their way home," I said quickly, which was technically true but also obviously a deflection. Looking back, it was a stupid answer. I should have just said no, firmly, and closed the door. But I was 12 and caught off guard, and I knew he was asking because there were no cars in the driveway and because a kid was answering the door instead of an adult. He handed me the change without saying anything else, but he was still looking past me into the house like he was memorizing the layout. I took the pizza, mumbled thanks, and shut the door quickly, locking it behind me. I tried to shake off the weird feeling as I brought the pizza into the kitchen. I ate 3 slices standing at the counter, wrapped up the rest in aluminum foil like my mom had instructed, and put it in the fridge. Then I went back upstairs and lost myself in Agent Under Fire for the next few hours, trying to forget about the delivery guy's creepy question. It was probably around 11 p.m. when the doorbell rang again. I assumed it was my parents coming home, so I paused my game and hurried downstairs. "Mom? Dad?" I called through the closed door. But an unfamiliar voice responded from the other side. "Hey, I need help." I froze on the stairs, my hand gripping the banister. "I need to use a phone," the voice continued. Male, probably adult, but not a voice I recognized. "Who is this?" I asked, my heart starting to pound. "I just need to use a phone, man. Please. It's an emergency." I didn't want to look through the window. I was too scared. Every instinct told me that opening that door would be the worst decision I could make. I decided to go back upstairs and ignore it. But as I turned and started climbing the stairs, which are positioned directly in front of the front door, the man outside suddenly banged on the door hard. "Wait, please. I really need help." And that's when I realized he could see me through the glass panel at the top of the door. I turned around, and even though it was dark on the front porch, I could see the outline of a head, a silhouette pressed against the glass, looking down at me through the window. Our eyes met, even though I couldn't see his face clearly. I could feel him staring at me. I bolted up the stairs and ran straight to my parents' room, slamming the door behind me. The only house phone upstairs was in their bedroom, sitting on my mom's nightstand. I grabbed it with shaking hands and dialed my mom's cell phone number. I didn't have my dad's memorized yet. She answered after 3 rings, her voice slightly slurred. She'd probably had a few glasses of wine with dinner. "Hey honey, what's up?" "Mom, there's someone at the door," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He keeps asking to come in." The change in her tone was instant and dramatic. She went from relaxed and tipsy to sharp and urgent in half a second. "What? Someone's at the door? Did you answer him?" I asked who it was through the door. I admitted. Okay. I could hear her breathing faster. "Did you open the door?" "No." "Good. That's good. Is the door locked?" "Yes." "Okay, listen to me carefully. Does this person know you're home alone? Did anyone today know you were by yourself?" My stomach dropped as I immediately thought of the pizza delivery guy. "The pizza guy," I said quietly. "When he delivered earlier, he asked if I was alone." There was a brief pause on the other end, and then my mom's voice came back even more serious. "Okay. We're calling the police right now. Your dad's calling them on his phone. I'm staying on the line with you. Do not hang up. Do not leave your room. Lock the bedroom door." I rushed to the door and turned the small lock on the handle. It was one of those cheap interior door locks that you could probably force open with a good shove, but it was better than nothing. As I was doing this, the doorbell rang again. Then a 3rd time. "He's still there," I whispered into the phone, my voice cracking. "I know, baby. I know. The police are on their way. We're on our way too. Just stay in the room and stay quiet." I could hear my mom talking to my dad in the background, and I could hear my dad's voice on his phone giving our address to the 911 dispatcher. It was summer, and the windows were open a few inches to let in the cool night air. Through my parents' bedroom window, which faced the side yard, I suddenly heard something that made my blood run cold. The gate. The metal gate that led from the front yard to the backyard. I heard it creak open slowly, deliberately quiet, like someone was trying not to make noise. "Mom," I whispered. "I just heard the side gate open." "What?" Her voice went up an octave. "The gate to the backyard?" "Yes." "Okay, just stay there. Stay quiet. Keep the lights off. Don't make any noise." I could hear the barely controlled panic in her voice now, and it made everything worse. If my mom was scared, I should be terrified. What if he tries to get in through the window? I asked, thinking of the back sliding door that led from the den into the backyard. "Don't talk," she said firmly. "Just listen to me and wait for the police." She kept feeding me updates. The police were 8 minutes away, then 6 minutes, then 4. She kept reminding me not to speak, to stay hidden, to stay quiet. I was starting to calm down just slightly when I heard something that made every hair on my body stand up. Footsteps. Inside the house. Not outside. Not on the porch or in the yard. Inside. Downstairs. Moving slowly through the first floor like someone was exploring room by room. I whispered into the phone, barely audible, "He's inside." I heard my mom scream something into the other phone, probably telling the police that the intruder was inside the house with me. "Hide," she said urgently. "Hide under the bed right now. Don't come out until the police are there." I dropped to the floor and crawled under my parents' bed, dragging the phone with me. The cord was just barely long enough. For my 12-year-old self, this was the most horrifying, surreal moment of my entire life. Like something out of a nightmare, except I was wide awake and this was actually happening. The only thing between me and whoever was downstairs was that flimsy bedroom door lock. I heard the footsteps move to the stairs. Heard them start climbing, slow and methodical. My parents' bedroom is at the far end of the upstairs hallway. My sister's room and my room are closer to the stairs. The footsteps reached the top and then seemed to fade slightly, I assumed because the intruder had gone into our bedrooms first, searching them. My mom was whispering updates constantly now, mostly just reassuring me that the police were almost there, that I needed to stay absolutely silent. Then the footsteps came down the hallway toward the master bedroom. They stopped right outside the door. I held my breath, pressing myself as flat as possible under the bed, the phone clutched to my ear. The doorknob turned, or tried to turn. It rattled as the person on the other side tested it, found it locked, and tried again. They tried several times as if jiggling the handle would somehow unlock it. Then there was a soft knock. Tap tap tap. Gentle, almost polite. But whoever was on the other side didn't say anything. Didn't identify themselves. Didn't ask to be let in. Just that quiet, deliberate knocking. They tried the doorknob one more time, rattling it harder. Then the footsteps retreated. Back down the hallway. Back down the stairs. Fading away deeper into the house. I didn't move. Didn't make a sound. I was too terrified to even cry. My mom's voice in my ear, "The police are there. They're coming in. But stay where you are until they call for you." I expected to hear them kick down the front door, but instead I just heard the sudden heavy sounds of multiple footsteps and a man's voice shouting my name, identifying himself as a police officer. "It's safe," my mom said. "You can come out now. Go unlock the door for them." I crawled out from under the bed, my whole body shaking, and unlocked the bedroom door. 2 police officers were standing in the hallway. 2 more were downstairs. They all had their hands on their weapons, scanning the house. The intruder was gone. They didn't have to kick down the front door because the back door was standing wide open. The sliding glass door in the den was also completely open. That was how he'd gotten in. I had to sit down with the officers and tell them everything that had happened. The pizza delivery guy's weird question, the man at the door asking for help, hearing the gate open, hearing footsteps inside the house. By the time my parents got home about 20 minutes later, only 2 officers remained. The others had searched the property and the surrounding streets but found no sign of the intruder. My parents hugged me so tight I thought I'd suffocate, and I finally let myself cry. The next evening, my parents took me to Gianni's Pizzeria. They wanted me to point out the delivery driver if I saw him. When we walked in, I looked around at the employees behind the counter, but I didn't see the guy from the night before. My dad approached the manager and described the delivery driver. Mid-30s, long beard, glasses, black trucker hat. "That'd be Phil," the manager said. "He's out on a delivery right now." My parents explained what had happened, that we believed Phil had cased our house during the delivery and either come back himself or told someone else that a kid was home alone. The manager's face hardened. "There's no way Phil would do something like that. You need to leave." My parents made a scene. My dad raised his voice, said we'd been loyal customers for years and that they were harboring someone who'd endangered a child. My mom said we'd never give them our business again and that they should be ashamed. We left and sat in the car in the parking lot, waiting. We waited for almost an hour. Phil never came back from his delivery. My parents were convinced the manager had called or texted him, warning him that we were there looking for him. Over the next few days, my parents contacted several lawyers to see if we could pursue any kind of legal action against Phil or the pizzeria. But every lawyer said the same thing. Without solid evidence that Phil was the intruder, there was no case. We couldn't prove he'd done anything wrong. The police investigation went nowhere. No fingerprints, no evidence, no witnesses. We never went back to Gianni's. The place closed down about 3 years later, though I don't know if it was related to what happened to us or just poor business. My parents didn't leave me home alone again for a long time after that incident. I think I was 16 before they felt comfortable doing it again. To this day, I believe it was the pizza delivery guy. Or at the very least, someone he told about me being home alone. Because who else would have known? Story 2, The Man in the Woods. When I was a teenager, I think I was 16 or 17, my parents and I moved from Southern California to a secluded area in North Idaho. My parents had both retired early from tech jobs in Silicon Valley, and they'd spent years planning and saving to build their dream home deep in the backcountry. The property was incredible. 20 acres of pristine forest that backed right up to national parkland and paper mill logging grounds. The nearest neighbor was over 2 miles away. We had complete privacy, total silence, nothing but trees and wildlife for as far as you could see. The house itself was massive, easily 4,000 square feet. 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, a full gym in the basement, a bar and pool room, and an actual movie theater set up with a projector screen and surround sound. It was the kind of house people dream about. Remote, quiet, luxurious. Perfect. Or so we thought. I was dating my high school girlfriend at the time. Her name was Emma. We'd been together for about 8 months, and we were in that phase of the relationship where we couldn't get enough of each other. One Friday night, my parents went out for dinner and a movie in town, which was about a 45-minute drive. They told me I could have Emma over as long as we stayed downstairs and didn't do anything stupid. I invited her over, and we decided to watch a movie in the basement theater. I grabbed a beer from my dad's stash. I was underage, but I figured 1 beer wouldn't hurt, and we settled in to watch Gladiator. Everything started out completely normal. We were cuddled up on the couch, watching Russell Crowe fight for his life in the Coliseum, laughing and talking during the slower parts. But somewhere around the midpoint of the movie, maybe 11:30 or midnight, something shifted in me. I was suddenly overwhelmed with this intense fight or flight feeling. Like my body sensed something my conscious mind couldn't see. My heart started pounding for no reason. I felt hyper-aware of everything, every sound, every shadow, every movement in my peripheral vision. I kept glancing at the large uncovered windows behind us that looked out into the pitch-black forest. During the day, those windows offered a beautiful view of towering pine trees and mountains in the distance. But at night, they just reflected our own images back at us, and beyond the reflection, total darkness. I didn't want to freak Emma out, so I kept my anxiety to myself. Things actually got a little heated between us during the movie. I'll spare you the details, but the entire time I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. After the movie ended, I walked Emma upstairs and out to her car. She drove off, and I turned to go back inside when I remembered I'd left all the basement lights on: the movie room, the bar room, the pool room. My dad would be annoyed if I left them running all night. So I went back downstairs. I turned off the lights in the movie room first, plunging it into darkness. As my eyes adjusted, I glanced at the large window that faced the backyard. And that's when I saw him. A man was standing outside, pressed against the glass, staring in at me. He looked homeless, wild, matted hair, filthy torn clothes that hung off his thin frame. But what froze me in place was his expression. He had the biggest, creepiest smile I've ever seen in my life. His mouth was stretched impossibly wide, showing yellowed teeth. His eyes were wide and unblinking, with a manic, deranged quality that made him look inhuman. And in his right hand he was holding a knife, a long kitchen knife that caught the faint moonlight. He was gently tapping the blade against the glass. Tap, 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 tap. Methodical and deliberate, like he was trying to get my attention or just enjoying my fear. At first I thought I was hallucinating. That couldn't be real. There couldn't actually be a man standing outside my window with a knife, smiling at me like a lunatic. I slowly backed away from the window, my eyes never leaving his face. I moved to the bar room to turn off those lights. The bar room has a sliding glass door that also faces the woods. I flipped the light switch and the room went dark. And I watched in absolute horror as the man calmly walked from the movie room window to the bar room door, following me. He moved with this eerie fluidity like he was gliding. Now we were less than a foot apart, separated only by a thin pane of glass. I could see every detail of his face, the dirt caked in the creases of his skin, the wild look in his eyes, the unnatural width of his smile. He didn't try to open the door, didn't try to get in. He just stood there staring at me, still holding that knife. I turned and ran upstairs without saying a word. My parents had just walked through the front door. Perfect timing. "I think I need to go to the psych ward or something," I blurted out, my voice shaking. "I swear I just saw a guy with a knife watching me outside." My mom's face went pale. My dad's eyes immediately narrowed into that protective, dangerous look I'd only seen a few times in my life. Without a word, my dad went straight to the gun safe in his office, grabbed his hunting rifle and headed for the back door. "What's going on?" asked my mom. She looked at me with genuine fear in her eyes. "There have been a few break-ins in the area over the past month," she said quietly. "A guy wandering through the woods trying to get into people's homes. The description you gave matches exactly what other people have reported." My dad came back about 20 minutes later, shaking his head. "Didn't see anyone. No signs of entry, no footprints. Nothing." The police were called. They came out with flashlights and searched the property but didn't find anything either. No evidence. No tracks. Just dark, silent woods. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. That night, as I lay in bed trying to sleep, I heard it. A light tapping sound coming from below me. My bedroom was on the second floor, directly above the movie room. Tap, 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 It sounded like metal gently tapping glass. The same rhythm I'd heard earlier. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Pipes settling, the house adjusting to the temperature change, my imagination playing tricks on me. But the tapping continued. 4 hours. This happened night after night for the next 3 weeks. Sometimes it would stop for a few nights and I'd think maybe it was finally over. Then I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and hear it again, faint but unmistakable. One night I swore I heard footsteps on the roof. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving across the shingles above my bedroom. I checked the windows constantly but I never saw anyone. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being stalked. That he was out there watching, waiting. Then winter came. My parents had to go out of town for a long weekend. Some work thing my dad couldn't get out of. They were nervous about leaving me alone after everything that had happened, but I insisted I'd be fine. Before they left, my dad gave me his shotgun and showed me how to use it. He made me promise I'd keep it loaded and within reach at all times. We also had a Rottweiler named Duke, the sweetest, most gentle dog you'd ever meet. He was usually completely silent, never barked at anything. But my dad told me that if Duke ever barked or growled, I should take it seriously. He only did that when something was genuinely wrong. The first 2 nights alone were fine. Quiet. Uneventful. The third night, I was lying in bed around 1 a.m. when I heard it. Slow, crunching footsteps in the snow outside. Heavy and deliberate, like someone was walking carefully, trying not to make too much noise but unable to avoid the crunch of fresh snow. Duke's head immediately shot up from where he was lying at the foot of my bed. His ears perked forward and he started growling, low, deep, and continuous. Then he jumped off the bed and ran to my bedroom door, barking ferociously. I'd never heard him bark like that. It was aggressive, territorial, warning someone away. I grabbed the shotgun from beside my bed and went to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to look outside. I couldn't see anyone in the darkness, but Duke was going insane, barking at the door, then running to the window, then back to the door. Then I heard it. A slow, hollow knock at the front door. 3 deliberate knocks, spaced several seconds apart. Knock. 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 I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just stood there in my bedroom holding the shotgun, heart racing. Duke continued barking for another 10 minutes before finally calming down. I didn't sleep at all that night. Just sat on my bed with the shotgun across my lap, lights on, door locked, Duke pacing the room. The next morning, I went outside to investigate. What I found made my stomach drop. Fresh footprints in the snow. Human footprints, bare feet, circling the entire house. They stopped at every single window, every one, like someone had been systematically checking each one, trying to look inside, searching for me. I followed the footprints around the property. They eventually led into the forest. I followed them for maybe half a mile before they started to zigzag, veer off in random directions, loop back on themselves like whoever made them was trying to confuse anyone following their trail. Something told me it was a very bad idea to keep going, so I turned back. That night the tapping came back. Louder this time. More insistent. I knew it was him. The man with the knife and the insane smile. I wasn't going to hide anymore. I grabbed the shotgun, unlocked my bedroom door, and stepped out onto the second-story deck that overlooked the backyard. I flipped on the powerful fog lights my dad had installed to illuminate the property. And there he was. Same man. Same deranged smile. Same dead, empty eyes. Standing at the edge of the tree line, holding the knife, staring up at me like he'd been waiting for this moment. I raised the shotgun and shouted as loud as I could, "If you don't leave right now, I'll put one right through you." He didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just stood there, unblinking, grinning. So I fired a warning shot into the air. The blast echoed through the forest. Finally, I got a reaction. He staggered slightly like the sound had startled him. Then he slowly backed into the woods, still facing me, still smiling, until the darkness swallowed him. I ran downstairs, threw open the sliding glass door, and unleashed Duke. He bolted into the forest like a black missile, barking and snarling with an aggression I'd never seen from him. He had a shock collar to keep him from going too far, but I let him chase that guy as far as the collar would allow. I stood on the deck, shotgun ready, watching the tree line. Duke came back about 10 minutes later, still agitated but calmer. Whatever or whoever he chased was gone. After that night, I never saw the man again. But I also never felt truly safe in that house. Even after my parents came home. Even after we installed better security systems and motion sensor lights. I moved out for college the next year and only came back for holidays. My parents still live there, but they've admitted they sometimes hear things at night. Footsteps in the snow. Tapping on windows. Shadows moving through the trees. They never see anyone. But they know he's out there. And I know it too. Story 3. The spring break cabin. This happened in March of 2022, during spring break of my sophomore year of college. My friends and I, 6 of us total, decided to rent a cabin in rural South Carolina for a few days. We just wanted to get away from everything. No classes, no stress, no responsibilities. Just us, some alcohol, good music, and maybe a bonfire or two. There were 4 guys, me, Matt, Chris, and Tyler, and 2 girls, Jess and Sarah. We'd all been close friends since freshman year, and this was supposed to be one of those trips we'd remember forever. The cabin we found online was suspiciously cheap for its size. 2 stories, a wraparound porch, 2 full bathrooms, and it was listed as being on private land near a lake. The photos looked decent if a little outdated. It was way out in the middle of nowhere. No towns for miles, completely surrounded by dense forest. When we called the owner to finalize the booking, he had this thick southern accent and seemed kind of off. At the end of the call, he said something that should have been a red flag. "Y'all just don't go wandering too deep into those woods, you hear? Got some old stuff back there, abandoned wells, busted fences, snakes. Easy to get turned around. Best to stay close to the cabin." We laughed about it after hanging up. Thought he was just trying to add some spooky southern charm to the rental. You know, like those Airbnb hosts who market their places as historic or rustic, when they really just mean old and falling apart. But when we actually arrived at the cabin, it wasn't funny anymore. The drive took forever. Our GPS lost signal about an hour before we arrived, and we had to navigate using a hand-drawn map the owner had texted us. The last 5 miles of road were just dirt and gravel, barely wide enough for 1 car. Trees got thicker and thicker the closer we got, blocking out the sunlight. When we finally saw the cabin through the trees, we all kind of went quiet. It didn't look like the photos. At all. It was older, smaller, and way more rundown. The windows were dusty and streaked with what looked like years of grime. A few of the shutters were hanging off their hinges at odd angles. The porch boards looked warped and rotten. And there was this smell in the air, faint but definitely noticeable. Like old garbage mixed with wet wood and something organic and decaying. "Well, this is charming," Chris said sarcastically. Tyler tried to stay positive. "It just has character, right? Adds to the experience." We unloaded our bags and supplies from the car. Coolers full of beer, bottles of liquor, food for grilling, firewood we'd bought at a gas station about 20 miles back. We claimed our rooms. I got stuck with the small ground floor bedroom right next to the kitchen. And by 7 p.m., we were already drinking and grilling burgers on the rusty propane grill we found on the porch. The first night was actually pretty fun. We drank, played cards, cranked music from a Bluetooth speaker, and told stupid stories about our worst hookups and most embarrassing college moments. Around 11 p.m., it got cold, that sharp, penetrating cold that only happens in the deep woods. We moved inside and continued the party in the living room. That's when I started noticing how dark it was outside. Not just normal nighttime dark. I mean absolute, complete blackness. The porch lights barely illuminated more than a few feet, and beyond that was just impenetrable darkness. The trees were so dense and close that it felt like they were pressing in on the cabin from all sides. And it was silent. No insects, no wind, no animal sounds. Just heavy, oppressive quiet. We crashed around 2 a.m. I took the small ground floor bedroom, just a mattress on a metal frame and a window that faced the woods. I woke up at 4:17 a.m., I remember because I checked my phone. There was no reason for me to wake up. I just suddenly became wide awake, like someone had shaken me or my body sensed danger. I lay there for a moment, heart already beating fast, listening. Then I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. At first, I thought it was the heater or pipes settling. But then it repeated and I realized it wasn't mechanical. It sounded like fingers tapping on glass. Gentle, deliberate, rhythmic. I turned my head toward the window and my entire body went rigid. There was a man standing outside, pressed against the glass. His face was inches from the window, so close I could see every detail despite the darkness. Pale skin, wild unkempt hair, no shirt, just bare torso covered in what looked like dirt or dried blood. His mouth hung slightly open like he was breathing through it. His eyes were wide, unblinking, staring directly at me. He didn't move. He just stood there and continued tapping on the glass with one finger. Tap, tap, tap. I felt like my body had locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then the tapping got faster. Tap, 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 tap. I finally found my voice. "Matt," I whispered, knowing he was sleeping on the couch just outside my room. "Matt." No response. "Matt." Louder this time. I heard him groan, then, "What? What do you want?" "Look," I said, my voice shaking, pointing at the window. Matt sat up, rubbing his eyes. He looked toward my window, and when he saw the man, he immediately jumped to his feet, knocking over the coffee table with a loud crash. That must have scared the guy off, because by the time Matt turned on the porch light and ran outside, the man was gone. Vanished into the woods without a trace. The noise woke everyone else up. The girls were terrified. Tyler tried to convince us it was just some drunk local who'd stumbled onto the property by mistake. Chris thought maybe it was a hunter who'd gotten disoriented. But I knew better. That man hadn't been lost or drunk. He'd been standing there deliberately watching me sleep, tapping on the glass to wake me up. We blocked the doors with furniture, moved the couch in front of the large living room window, and took turns staying awake for the rest of the night. Nothing else happened until morning. When the sun came up, we went outside to investigate. What we found made us all go silent. Footprints. Bare human footprints circling the entire cabin. They stopped at every single window, every one, including the tiny bathroom window upstairs that you'd need a ladder to reach. Someone had systematically checked every window in the house, looking for a way in or just looking at us while we slept. That should have been our cue to leave immediately. But we didn't. We were young, stubborn, and didn't want to overreact. Plus, we'd already paid for the cabin, and none of us wanted to waste the money. So we stayed for another night. The second night started the same way, drinking, music, sitting around the fire pit outside. But the energy was completely different. Everyone kept glancing nervously at the tree line. Jess refused to drink, saying she wanted to stay alert. Chris kept his hunting knife on his belt the entire time. When we finally went inside around midnight, we locked every window and double-checked all the doors. We even moved furniture in front of the most vulnerable entry points. I barely slept. I lay in that ground floor bedroom, staring at the window, waiting for the tapping to start again. Around 3:30 a.m., I heard Matt get up from the couch. He said he was going to the kitchen for water. A minute later, he called my name. Not loud, just loud enough for me to hear. His voice had this strange quality, like he was trying to stay calm but was deeply disturbed. I got up and went to the hallway. Matt was standing there, completely still, pointing toward the kitchen. There was someone in there. The man from the night before. But this time he was inside the cabin with us. He was naked now, his back to us, covered in long scratches that looked raw and infected. He was standing in front of the refrigerator, just staring at it, swaying slightly on his feet like he was drunk or drugged. He wasn't moving toward us or acknowledging us. He just stood there, rocking gently, fixated on the refrigerator like he'd never seen one before. Matt slowly backed away and we gathered everyone in the living room. Chris had his knife. Sarah grabbed the fire poker from beside the fireplace. I had my pocket knife, a pathetically small weapon, but it was better than nothing. We decided to turn on the lights and confront him. But when we flipped the switch, he was gone. The back door was standing wide open, not broken, not forced, just open. Like he'd had a key or like we'd somehow failed to lock it properly even though we'd all checked it multiple times. We didn't wait. We didn't discuss it. We just started packing. 20 minutes later, we were in the car, driving through the dark forest roads, not stopping until we had cell phone signal. We called the sheriff's office and met a deputy at a diner off the highway about an hour later. He didn't seem surprised at all. He just asked if anyone had been hurt, then said, almost casually, "Yeah, we've had some trouble with folks squatting in those woods. Some of them aren't right in the head, if you know what I mean." We tried to explain that this wasn't just a random homeless person. This man had watched us, came back 2 nights in a row, and had somehow gotten inside a locked cabin. The deputy just nodded like he'd heard it all before. When we mentioned the cabin owner by name, the deputy's expression changed slightly, like he recognized it. But he didn't say anything. The rental listing disappeared from every website a few days later. Just completely wiped. We tried to get our deposit back but never heard from the owner again. Our emails bounced back as undeliverable. We never got answers. Never got any follow-up from the sheriff's office. Never found out who that man was or how he got inside. But I still see his face sometimes when I wake up at night. Standing at my window. Tapping on the glass. That blank expression and those dead eyes. We don't talk about that trip anymore. And as far as I know, none of us have been back to South Carolina since. 3 people. 3 homes. 3 experiences with someone outside who shouldn't have been there. I want to thank everyone who shared their stories. These experiences are terrifying, but by sharing them, we can help others recognize warning signs and stay safe. If you're ever in a situation where you suspect someone is outside your home, do not open the door. Do not go outside to investigate. Call 911 immediately. Stay on the line with the dispatcher. Lock all doors and windows. Go to the most secure room in your house. Stay calm and follow police instructions. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If tonight's stories resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share these stories with your friends and family. The more people who know how to respond to these situations, the safer we all are. Stay vigilant out there. Lock your doors. Trust your gut. And remember, not every knock at your door is friendly. Not every face at your window is harmless. Sometimes, the most terrifying thing in the world is knowing that someone is outside, watching, waiting, circling your home in the darkness. Until next time, stay safe.